welcome to a brand new episode of Coming Distractions brought to you by the Nerdpocalypse podcast. I'm your host, Jay. I'm here with my co-host, Carrie.
What's up?
All right, guys, we are back. This episode, we're going to talk about the brand new Marvel film, Captain Marvel, starring Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson, and Ben Mendelson as well.
And Jude Law.
And Jude Law, that's right. And Annette Bening. Like, everyone is in this movie. Okay, this is the 21st movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is the penultimate film before the big Endgame.
Yep.
So, and also Marvel's first solo female superhero movie,
yes,
which is a big deal.
Took them long enough.
It only took 20 movies to get there. Okay, so Carrie and I did both see this. Just a quick, what is the movie about for people who don't know, which would be crazy. There is this fighter pilot named Carol Danvers who loses her memory, and she is brought in by this alien race called the Kree to be this warrior for them. And she slowly, as the film progresses, kind of coming into her own with her powers and getting her memory back.
Yeah, so I think it's important to note that the storyline takes a lot from the, I guess, 1970s storyline of the Kree-Skrull War. It's focused primarily on the ongoing conflict between the Kree and the Skrull.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, so there's the premise. There's all the backstory. Carrie, your thoughts? You were super excited about
yeah, so worth noting, Carol Danvers is like one of my top, like, three. She's basically my second favorite after Cable. Like, my top five are like Cable, Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, and like Black Panther and whoever else.
Just the gamut of everyone else.
Yeah, holy shit, this was everything I wanted from a Captain Marvel movie, particularly one set in the mid-1990s.
Yeah, it's solidly in the 90s, actually.
Like, if you've met me, you know that's just where my brain stopped, was in about 1998. So the movie takes place in 95. The music is super good. The sort of culture of the time is really good.
Yeah.
I mean, they nailed it. They nailed all aspect of like the 90s, but they nailed all aspects of who Carol is and who Captain Marvel is, and her relationship to her fellow Kree Star Force warriors, and then her relationship to the members of the Air Force who were friends with her before she was in a bit of an incident.
Yeah, a little bit of an incident. So I thought it was very good. I will say that if I have to, I will heap praise and then I will give my criticism.
Okay.
In that order. So one, I love the 90s setting because I love the soundtrack. Like, the soundtrack's dope. They had some really good needle drop moments where it was like they weren't even trying to be subtle about it, and I actually appreciated that. I was
I almost don't even want to, like, you sat next to me, like, I'm sure you noticed every single time like a new 90s jam came on, I was just like,
yeah. That's what should be playing right now. Absolutely. So they lean heavily into that. So it felt like kind of the 90s, or soundtrack was like the 90s version of Guardians, right? Like,
not quite to the same sort of like heavy-handed extent that Guardians did. I would sort of compare the use of a certain song that, like, I don't even want to spoil. To the way that Thor Ragnarok used Immigrant Song.
Okay, that's actually a fair comparison. You're absolutely right. You can't, like, telling what song it is and at what point is like kind of a spoiler. Actually, it was dope. And again, they leaned directly into that, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. And I was actually pretty excited about that. The movie works in I think in 99% of the ways that it attempted to. I think it gives a clear backstory for Carol, an interesting one. It gave a good sort of summary of her backstory in an interesting way by kind of like going forward and going back and going forward.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was kind of an interesting way to tell her story. As far as like the most obvious part, which is this is the Marvel's first female superhero, right? Not Black. We're not forgetting about Black Widow, but she is a hero. She is a hero.
She is not a superhero. And like, I don't even want to discount like the Wasp. Like, the Wasp is very much her own thing, but like Ant-Man and the Wasp was about their partnership. This is about a woman standing on her own as basically just a fucking nuke, man.
Yeah, she's just a fucking nuclear weapon. She is, especially by the end.
Yeah.
But I thought it really super worked. I thought they gave her a great starting off point that seeing her in Endgame is going to be fucking dope. Like, you're like, oh shit. Cause like at the end of the movie, like they show her level of power and it's pretty fucking big.
Yeah.
But like they kind of go, okay, no, enough of that.
Yeah.
Like we'll show you the rest of it at the in the next movie, which I thought was smart because she's a fucking planet killer, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I know one of the big criticisms from the trailers that a lot of mediocre men had was that they were like, a hero with that much power all at once isn't that interesting. And it's like, I think it's important to stress her blowing the shit out of ships out in space doesn't happen until like the climax of the movie. That's the end of the movie. She has to build up to that point, both physically and mentally, spiritually, as far as who she is and where she is in her life in order to actually tap into that power that is inside of her.
Right. I mean, there are a lot of, this might be outside of, I would say Black Panther has a ton of this too, and I think there's a reason for that. This has a lot of straightforward, plot and everything else, but it's got a lot of, did you get the metaphor? Like, you gotta, for some people, I think it's really obvious. I think for women, it'll be more obvious.
There are certain parts in this that very much spoke to the experience of being a woman.
Yeah. And I think, I think that's important.
Right.
Like,
But in the same way that Black Panther spoke to the experience of being black.
Right, exactly. And that to me, like, that's why for me, I wanted to see it. I'm going to see it again. I'm going to take my wife and I are going to go see it. But that to me is what's important, right? In this film. I think it's a damn good movie, but I think the idea of showing like those experiences through the lens of superheroes and everything else, I think they do such a good job in showing that in this movie and like giving that experience. I thought that was important.
Like I want to stress the fact that like they're not harping on the fact that she's a woman. Like, she's a superhero who also happens to be a woman. And therefore she experiences things in a certain way that men do not experience.
Right. Just in the way that characters talk to her sometimes is just kind of interesting, right? And I'm sure that's very much on purpose.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like, she is not given a level of agency and respect early on. And I think that is 100% on purpose. Yeah. And as time goes on, it's not that suddenly people are like, oh, I'm going to change my ways because of you. No, she demands it, right? Yeah. And it's just like, and you're like, oh, I get it.
It's like
and that's important.
She's by no way like a girly girl. She doesn't go out of her way to dress particularly sexy or anything like that. This is I
thought the costume looked good.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good, but like you compare her costume to basically how Black Widow looked in like her first couple appearances 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was very much concentrated on the fact that
on
like,
the male gaze.
Yeah, she is hot, dude.
It's you look at Black Widow and in the first Avengers and in her first appearance in Iron Man and whatever, and that's Iron Man 2. That's looking at a female hero from exclusively the male gaze.
Absolutely.
And you look at Carol in this movie, and this is a female hero from the female gaze.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. Also, she absolutely rocks the like mid-90s grunge look. Like that 9 Inch Nails t-shirt, I'm just like, good, that's a good look.
Yeah, no, I was okay with it. Yeah. I was more than okay with it. So my criticism of this movie is that Marvel still hasn't, and I think they're getting better at it, and I think it's going to it matters less and less as we go on, as we enter movie 22. All of the first, like the intro movies for superheroes, those stories are just not as interesting as the ones that come after it. And that's just the nature of these characters, right? Like, yeah, okay, fucking, Steve Rogers, he gets the serum, and then, he's super strong and all this other stuff. And the story is kind of by the books. Right. Iron Man is kind of by the books, even though it's a good movie. And
I would say this is slightly less by the books, because unlike these other films where they had to like come into their powers or whatever, Carol was already fully powered, and Jude Law's character is just like, can you relax.
That was basically the thing. Relax.
Relax. Can you just take a deep breath and just
before you kill everyone here.
So like she doesn't like, we don't get the full backstory as far as like how she got her powers until towards the end of the movie.
Right.
So she's already like, she arrives on Earth and she's immediately getting into antics and whatnot. Whereas a lot of these other previous films with, you know, particularly Doctor Strange comes to mind, but Iron Man and Captain America, it's like the whole first act is them just like building up to a certain power level, and then they are able to kick into gear.
Yeah, exactly.
But this one, she's just like, I'm here, I landed in a blockbuster, and now I have to fight a bunch of Skrulls. Like,
right, exactly. And that, to me, that's what I'm saying. It's definitely getting better. It's getting better. But it does have that first hero introduction slump. Now, I'm sure people could go back and say, well, Black Panther didn't have that, but that's because he was introduced already powered in Civil War. So like it's not really quite the same. And some people were like, "Oh, I heard this movie isn't that good." It's not that it's not that good. It's very good. It's just that you have to remember that, look, I'm sorry, I don't think Doctor Strange is that amazing because it suffers from that same slump.
I like it, but I'm also a sucker for bendy toots.
Yeah,
so.
Right. But like when you look back at that movie, you're like, yeah, okay, like
objectively, like it's
fine.
Solidly in like the middle of like, it's not terrible. It's better than some of the other origins, I thought.
Right.
I think Captain Marvel, it's still got that sort of like Marvel superhero origin story feel to it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I will
give you that caveat. But I think in terms of where it ranks among those, it is absolutely near the top, if not the top.
I would put it in the top 3 of the origin stories. I would put
Iron Man, Cap, and Captain Marvel.
I would probably put those 3, right? And again, I'm not counting Black Panther because he was already introduced and had a significant role previously, so I wouldn't put his movie even in that category at all. So yeah, I would probably say it's in the top 3rd, like definitely. But that is the criticism I have, is that they just. Look, those stories, even in comics, are just not as interesting as the second story of any of those characters. Like, I love the shit out of the first Avenger. It's a great movie, whatever. It's not better than Winter Soldier. Look, Iron Man is really good. But Iron Man I would argue Iron Man 1 is probably the best of the 3. But I would argue that he got progressively better in movies.
He got more interesting as an individual character over the course of the movies,
right? Yeah. So, like, and I think that to me is the biggest thing that this movie is suffering from, is just that point. That being said, she's gonna fucking rock in Endgame, dude. She's gonna be awesome.
Thanos is fucked.
Yeah, he's in trouble. Like, and I don't know. There are 2 after credit scenes that I think are really good and important. One more important than the other, but still both worth seeing. But I thought they were very good. Look, I like Sam Jackson in the movie.
Sam Jackson in this movie, like, finally we get to see Nick Fury. It's almost like a buddy cop movie at points with him and Carol just like trying to track down this information and whatnot. Right. But like we finally see Nick Fury in a co-starring role.
Yeah, because he's normally just like, hey, and then he's
just in the background of the rest of the MCU. But this is, we get his backstory with S.H.I.E.L.D. and all this other stuff. Like, we finally get more information about Nick Fury and who he is and how he became the person that we sort of know from the rest of the MCU, which I really liked. I loved the girl who played Maria Rambeau, whose name is escaping me right now. Yeah. But I thought she was fantastic.
I thought she had some of the most emotional, heavy scenes. She was really fucking good. I was
just like...
Yeah, there was a couple scenes I was like, okay. Like, I'm kind of bummed that they didn't just go with her as Monica Rambeau, like, you know, like later on, because I thought was really impressive. Yeah. I'm trying to track down her name now, but yeah, I thought she was really, really good. Lashana Lynch. Yeah. I thought she was great. There is one other aspect to this that I thought was really dope, is the little girl who played Monica Rambeau. Yeah. Right?
She's super cool.
She was really good, but there was a moment in the movie that I just, like, for me, I was like, that to me was like me watching Superman when I was a kid, right? It was this moment where she's talking to Carol. She refers to her as her Aunt Carol. Yeah. And she's like talking to her, and she helps her pick out the color for the uniform. And she's looking up at her like, you're so amazing. Like, you are a real fucking superhero. And it was that moment where I was like, that is why this movie is going to, one, is going to do incredibly well. Two, is why it's important.
Yeah.
Because they gave you the little girl seeing the fucking hero. I want to be like that moment. And that's it. That was incredibly important. And I was like, thank you.
Yep.
That's what these movies are about. I know there's a bunch of shit online, a bunch of 30-year-old dudes screaming and crying. It's about the kids. Yeah. And those kids are what is important, is why this shit is being made. And
representation is important.
It's super important. In that scene, I was just like, oh, that's me. But a girl. I totally understand it.
It's the idea, like, I really hope that people take their young sons to see this because, like, this isn't a movie just for girls. Like, this is a movie for everyone. But, like, I am so looking forward to seeing young girls who are maybe into Spider-Man, maybe into the Avengers, you know, maybe think Gamora is cool or whatever, and they go and they see Carol and they're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like,
and for the record, I also would like to see little boys go, holy shit, that was awesome. Because, by the way, our screening was, I mean,
super mixed.
It was, like, super mixed. And it wasn't like everyone's like, oh, I can't believe there's no dudes in this. Yeah. And guys are like, holy shit, this is awesome. So everybody was hyped.
Also, side note before we wrap it up, I would absolutely take a bullet for the cat.
Oh, Goose. Goose was a fucking great character.
Goose is a very good boy. And Goose's little arc in the movie draws more from the recent books and whatnot. Really pleased with the Kelly Sue DeConnick cameo in this movie.
That was good.
If you know what she looks like, and she's got a very distinct look about her, like, you see her real quick, and I'm just like, you go, girl. I'm super proud of you.
Yeah, man. Hey, look, I mean, not only did she do a great run for Carol, but she modernly put her on the map. I mean,
her run on Carol is what got me reading Carol.
Yeah. Like, that's the same for me too. So, and it was really fucking good.
Super good.
Look, I thought this was really great. Again, it suffers from the solo movie slump that Marvel has. That's just a general Marvel problem, not so much Captain Marvel movie problem. I look forward to seeing her in Endgame and tearing shit up. Yeah. So, your score out of 5?
I'm giving it a 5. This is everything I wanted.
All right, I'm gonna give it a 4.5.
Okay.
Yeah, I really dug it. I'm gonna see it again. And look, for those of you who went out and super supported Black Panther, look, do the same for this.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important. And I think it's going to do, looking at the numbers, it's already going to do well. But I want this to be just as much of a cultural phenomenon for women. I think this is just as important as Black Panther was for black folks. So there you go. Captain Marvel, go see it.
Thanks.
Bye.
You're watching the Nerdpocalypse YouTube channel. Make sure you click that button to subscribe and check out our weekly podcast where we talk about movie, TV, news, tech, and weird stories from around the internet.